Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and you're listening and or watching the Snob of West Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everyone, to our weekly show. We are glad to have you along for the ride. So let's go ahead and hop into today's show, where we start with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. There were a couple of updates that were released to the public this week. The first one being iOS 14.6. And pretty much what's included in this update. We talked about, I think, a little bit last week. Podcast subscriptions was included in this update, which allows for content creators like us to use Apple Podcast subscriptions instead, as kind of an alternative to Patreon. So you can have your supporters, listeners, subscribe to your channel for additional content. And the subscription prices are, of course, set by each individual creator, and it is billed monthly by default. It also gives content creators the option to offer annual billing, which typically when people do annual billing, you shave a little bit off, so it's a better deal rather than paying it monthly. And you can manage all of this from your Apple ID account settings. Mm-hmm. So that is the first thing. The next thing is Apple Card Family. So where you can have one Apple Card and you can have your kids on it, your spouse on it. Of course, anyone 13 years and older can be a part of this. It allows for, I think we might have lost Terrance. So we will give it a moment to come back. Not quite sure. Let's see if we can get Terrance back on.
Currently unavailable. Please leave a message after the beep.
So, not quite sure what's going on with Terrance. Let me see if I can get him back. All right. What's a little podcasting without some technical difficulties? Let's try it again.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not sure what happened. It looks like the live kept going. It just kind of dropped. Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
That's weird. We'll keep it moving. Where was I? Apple Card Family now being live. Again, it allows for multiple people to be on one Apple Card, and I'm assuming the primary owner can see and track all of the expenditures for that particular card. The other thing that's included in this update, go ahead.
I was going to say, according to the story, it says add support for families to track expenses, manage spending with optional limits and controls, and build credit together. So I'm curious as to where if this if, like, for instance, my daughter is 13. If I were to make her a quote unquote authorized user, a part of Apple Card family, is she using her own card or is she an authorized user under my account? This story says, or it gives off the impression that I can add my daughter as a user. She'll get her own card, and the purchases that she does and paying off the card, it'll build her credit.
See,
I have to do
I
some.
don't know. I was thinking that, so say you have a card and you have $1,000 limit.
Hmm.
I just figured that, of that $1,000, everybody, if you have three people on it, you, your wife, and your daughter, that $1,000 is for everybody.
Yeah, well, so maybe I'm
I
not
don't
sure
know.
how credit cards work, but I guess if she has her own card, the way it reads again is if she has her own card, she swipes a purchase, it shows her credit card made that purchase, and then like you mentioned, that $1,000 credit card limit, I then go and pay that off. Then it shows on her credit. I mean,
I don't
I have to
know.
look that into it, but again, correct us if we're wrong if that's how credit cards work nowadays. But I assumed an authorized user was the person that the owner of the account is getting the benefits of buying all these charges and then turn around and paying it off. They're getting the benefit on their credit.
Yeah, I don't know. It says with that, reading from an article in 95 Mac, it says with that, Apple's credit card can be shared with up to 5 people. So I don't know if that one card is shared or I don't know. It's weird. If anybody
It,
knows, hit us up and let us know because I'm not 100% sure.
yeah, yeah. I'm guessing that's how credit cards work nowadays.
I guess.
I guess so.
Interesting. All right. The next thing that this iOS update includes is some updates to AirTags, making it a little bit more, I guess, accessible. Some improvements to the app, to the Find My app itself. It says if you lose the item tracker, the lost mode now offers the option to add an email address instead of a phone number.
Yeah, because when it just released, you just had to put your phone number. Say, if lost, contact this phone number. Now they're giving people the options to use their internet email address if they don't want to give out their cell phone number.
And it says that
Because
the phone number is partially masked, so you may see like the first 3 or 4 digits of the number associated.
yeah.
So
So if somebody doesn't find your AirTag and they got your number to give you your AirTag back, it's like, well, now that I have your number, let me give it to this email marketing so people
right,
can spam your text messages to death.
right. So it's all a very unique balancing act.
Yeah, and email is a more publicly known
Yeah.
identifier than your cell phone number.
Right. All right. So the next thing is Shazam, the app that allows you to find out the name and artist of songs that you may hear, that you may like, that you've never heard of. It's now available in App Clip, which is the micro version of the app without having to actually have the full app on your device. So I guess that kind of makes sense because normally you have to kind of scroll to the app, find the app, and then snap the listen now. So it looks like it may make it easier to use the clip rather than the full app.
Well, I don't know because Apple bought Shazam,
Oh, they did.
and Apple is, when I say Apple, Shazam is built into Siri. So you could very easily say, "Hey Siri, what song is this?" She'll listen, and she's, "Oh, I did it." You can say, "Hey girl, what song is this?" And Siri is using Shazam and its technology to find that music, and then it will reveal the song in another screen to where you can pull it up, get more information. So I'm curious as to,
What's the benefit of having it as an app clip then?
well, again, I think it's the benefit of, since it's built into Siri, and now built into app clips, you still don't have to have the Shazam proper app.
Okay.
Now, the benefit to the Shazam proper app is it gives you a whole bunch of additional things you can do with that song. Like it can do karaoke in the sense that it'll show you the lyrics while it's playing, like you traditionally will see in karaoke. You can buy the song, you click a button, it'll take you directly to
I
Apple.
think you can add it to your library too, right?
Right. This is all within the Shazam proper app. But if you don't care about any of that and you just want to know what song it is, you can use Siri, like I mentioned before, and now you can use an app clip.
Okay, cool. And the last thing that this update includes is Apple Music lossless capabilities. I want to say we talked about this last week as well. They launched this. It launches in June. So I guess they're just getting you primed and ready. But you'll be able to use Dolby Atmos spatial audio and lossless. But again, you have to have the upgrade in order for this to work. And that's the last big thing in here. And it looks like they're saying that it will be rolling out officially in June, which is honestly only a few days away.
Right.
So I guess they're making sure you get your app, your phone and your devices upgraded. So once June hits, you will just be ready to rock and roll with the new lossless feature in Apple Music.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things in 14.6, but it's all security stuff, patching exploits and making sure nobody can do nefarious things. So if any reason, again, the reason why you would want to keep your phone as up to date as possible is to make sure security is tight.
Yep. And that leads honestly into the update of Big Sur, which came out, was it last week or was it this week? I can't remember. The Big Sur 11.4 update. It had to be this week. I think it was this week because week. I just updated both all of my devices. So it, some of the things that comes with this is expanded support for external GPUs, fixes some Safari bugs. But the biggest thing is that it provides a security patch for an exploit that they found that allows malware to take screenshots without the user's knowledge. Again, this is also an article from 9to5Mac. So it sounds like the biggest thing from the macOS update of Big Sur is to give you some additional security from exploits that they find. A company, Jamf, JAMF, I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, they're a super popular mobile device management system, but they're specifically for Apple devices. So, you think some of these other big mobile device management that can do Apple, Mac, Android, whatever else, this Jamf one is just primarily Apple.
Yeah, and they found this malware, and I'm assuming like Apple know it, but it seemed as if that malware was specifically targeted to Mac developers, and it mostly had issues with Xcode, which honestly kind of makes sense if you're in Xcode and you want to screenshot the screen to kind of jack somebody's code. Then I guess that's what attackers want, to get a copy of your code of what you're working on. So that's the biggest fix in that. And again, exploits and people injecting, malware is nothing new. People find, these types of exploits all the time because there's no such thing as 100% bug-free code. I don't think anybody holds really anybody to that. That's why you get all these patches and updates usually right after something is released, because something is found after you go live. So definitely turn the automatic updates on your devices and make your life simple. It's one of those things where you don't have to necessarily be completely tuned into what's going on in the in the tech ecosystem as it relates to different types of malware exploits or even just general updates. Turn it on,
And
makes it easy, makes life
and
easy.
not only turn it on, but you have to leave your devices plugged in and charged up at night for the updates to take, because I can see it now. People let their devices run all day, then they don't charge it up at night. And then in the morning, when they notice that they're low on battery, they plug it up. But then when they get the notification that says your device is about to update, do it now, do it later, do it tomorrow. They click do it tomorrow because they assume, well, I'm working right now. I don't need you to be updating, shutting down, restarting because I need to get this work done. So they click later, later, later.
And don't charge later.
But they're charging it while they're working. And then when they're done working, they unplug it. And then the
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Right. It's like, what? I mean, when am I supposed to update? I can't update at night because you don't have me charged. I can't update during the day while it's charging because you're working, quote unquote.
Right.
So what do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, that's a great point to bring out if you're going to have the automatic updates on. Make sure the updates happen overnight because typically you're asleep and not on your phone. So that's the perfect time to do your update. All right, let's head on over to the next thing. WWDC is starting in not next week, but the week after, June 7th through the 11th. Typically when Apple gets ready to have any type of event, they send out an email about the event starting. So people try and take clues and hints from the different images to try and see if there is something that they can glean from the image to see, hey, what can we do? What can we figure out? What can we tell from the image to give us an idea? So this week, actually on Monday, they released a couple of images and a little animation of the memoji. So I'm trying to, okay, there it is. It updated. So the memoji of a woman sitting at a laptop, and in the animation, I'm not sure. Oh, there it is. There it is. It's loading now. Trying to see if you guys can see it. In any event, the screen, she's sitting in front of a laptop, and the laptop slowly opens, and then you see her face. She got this shocked look like, oh my gosh. So this year's event is called, what is it? Something in Glow. I forgot. Glow and Behold. So a lot of people are assuming that since the animation is of a person, a woman, memoji looking at a laptop, the actual image from the actual image that was sent in the email is of 3 memojis sitting in front of a laptop screen, each in front of their own laptop screen. There it is. I was trying to find where the link was. It should be showing, yes. Looks like 2 female emojis and 1 male emoji. They're each sitting in front of what appears to be a laptop screen. So people read all types of things into that, and they are assuming that the new 14-inch and 16-inch laptops with M1, possibly M2 chips being in those devices. So a lot of people are really digging into these images to try and figure it out. And one of the things is, it appears, of course, that it's a laptop. But one of the other things that the cult of Mac found was they zoomed in on the lenses of one of the emojis, and you can see in the reflection of the glasses of one of the emojis, it's some code in there. And of course, someone zoomed in, flipped the image, and what apparently that code is for, one is for eat, one is for sleep, and one is for laptop, is for a laptop image. So some are saying it could be Eat Sleep Mac as, a sub theme. But of course, the person we've talked about before, John Prosser, he said he can confirm MacBook Pro. He's probably just guessing like the rest of us, because we see all of the emojis in the announcement are looking at a laptop screen.
Yeah. I may not have figured it out. Well, let me not give myself some credit. I would have noticed that this Memoji is looking at this screen and she has code on her glasses. Now, I probably couldn't have figured out what the code meant, but this is not super sleuthing.
No.
This is not some Sherlock Holmes, the Da Vinci Code, crack in here.
It's pretty straightforward what it is.
Right. And Apple has kind of been that way for the past couple of events, they put maybe letters or numbers in the design or, whatever the case may
be.
The
colors and the swirls for the last one that kind of said about.
This is not some, go on this national treasure type hunt in order to decode this thing. Apple has pretty much set precedent.
Right.
To let you know that something in this invite will give you some sort of clue as to what they're going to announce or say at the actual event. So, hats off to them for figuring it out, but come on.
Yeah,
you get kudos, but relax. This is not earth shattering.
Right. And the thing is,
the MacBook Pro was coming anyway.
Right. Because especially with the M2 chips we talked about, those are going to production. And typically WWDC is usually focused on software. And I think people are a little, woo, because it looks as if it appears as if it's going to be some hardware announced during the conference, because it is a developer conference, and usually all the software is kind of like a preview of what's to come, and the developers get to kind of play around with the software.
And they normally announce their higher end hardware at WWDC because, like you mentioned, it's for developers. So you think those higher end, more users who need more power, they need more graphics, they need more specs. Mm-hmm. So that's when they normally announce some of the pro level stuff is at WWDC. So again, not hating. Congratulations on doing your little code cracking, but relax.
Yeah. So at least we can see get an idea of what the expectation is. I'm pretty I always like WWDC, but it's it's cool. And as a person who's been waiting for the 16-inch laptop, I'm starting to get a little more excited because it's almost time for me to be able to buy it. I'm figuring they probably won't be available till the fall. Probably
won't be cheap. So you may have to have some decisions on you taking all these trips with all these people that we talked about in the pre-show and getting this laptop, because a 16-inch M2 MacBook Pro with all these ports and all this extra stuff, it ain't gonna be cheap, Jack.
No, but I'm excited for it. Can't wait. So, all right. So that is it about WWDC. And maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more once we actually get into June. And of course, WWDC, you can, again, it's conference, all week conference. You can, it starts June 7th, as I said before, at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern, and it goes through the 11th. The expectation is that Tim is going to do his opening keynote. We'll hear, all of the high level trappings that most people care about. You can watch the stream on Apple's events page. I'm not sure. It doesn't say if it's going to be on YouTube, because I think in the past, the previous events were streamed on YouTube as well. But as of now, you will be able to watch it on Apple's website. All right. The last thing we have in second string, Tidal. They have finally launched an Apple Watch app that includes streaming and offline playback. I guess Tidal is finally like, we need to step our game up, because of course you have Apple Music, which is a native app, you have Spotify, which is extremely popular, and if they want to compete with those two, they are going to have to make sure that they have an app for it. I know I've mentioned before, I'm a Tidal user and a Spotify user. So finally, it's about time that they finally, got it together and got an Apple Watch app for Tidal.
I'm kind of jealous, simply because Sonos ditched their Apple Watch app. It would have been nice to be able to use my watch to actually control my playlist via Sonos. I'm back and forth in between Sonos and maybe getting some more, getting HomePods, simply because the newer Sonos offer AirPlay. So basically, technically speaking, I can use my phone, just be listening to Apple Music, and I can stream that to my Sonos devices without actually having to use the Sonos interface. So it's kind of like a back and forth that I do, because I'm still hoping that Apple comes out with a sound bar, because again, the benefit of using Apple's like a HomePod or a sound bar, if it ever comes out, is the fact that I can stream directly from Apple Music. But since Sonos has AirPlay 2 enabled, I can do the same thing, but the functionality is different. So all that to say, all around the world to say, I'd still be nice to also have a Sonos Apple Watch app,
right,
to where I can get that additional functionality that Sonos offers when I'm not using the Apple Music app. Because one thing Sonos does a good job of is playing different songs in different areas and different volumes. You can have a totally different experience in this room and have a totally different experience in another room using Sonos versus Apple Music. It's not that cohesive like that. So all that say, it'd be nice if Sonos step up their game and get an Apple Watch. But shout outs to the Tidal folks.
Yep. Super excited to finally get that app. All right, that is it for the lowdown. Let's head over to second string, where we talk all other tech. The first thing on the docket, which was surprising to me when I saw it, especially based on what we know about Google, but it appears that they have partnered with a healthcare company, which has over 181 hospitals in that network. And I think we lost Terrance again. And let's see if we can get him back. Make sure the live stream is still going. The live stream is still going. So, all right. Let's try to get Terrance back on the line. All right. Let's get Terrance back in.
Hey, you there?
Hey, there you go.
I don't know what's going on. I got the message saying a poor connection, but I'm not sure whose connection. Is it Skype's? Is it yours? Is it mine?
I don't know. It has to be Skype's, because I was checking the live stream, and the live stream is still going. I'm still connected to Skype, so I don't know.
Well, maybe it's me, but I mean, I'm jacked in and I'm steadily watching my network connection. Anyway,
Yeah, I
keep it
don't know. That's
moving.
weird.
Something about Google about to steal your data.
Yeah, from your medical data. So Google has made a deal to partner with HCA, which has 181 hospitals and more than 2,000 healthcare sites in 21 states. So they are, I guess Google, I don't even think partnering is the word, but they are working with this healthcare conglomerate to provide healthcare algorithms for the company. Google, they're saying, will store the data anonymized from patient records, so it won't necessarily be directly linked, but they will have the patient data for all of the, I'm assuming, employees and patients as well. And the data will be used to build programs that could help doctors make decisions about patient care. It appears that this is a multi-year deal, but it doesn't specify exactly how long this partnership is. And it doesn't appear to have a whole lot of detail, which I'm sure is by design because it is healthcare data. They don't want to probably give out too much information so that, any bad actors that would come along and get involved, it would ease some of that. But yeah, I thought that it was very interesting that a healthcare company would partner with, someone like Google, especially with all of the recent issues surrounding data and data privacy to start to build this.
You mentioned that there wasn't a lot of information, not because they want to be sensitive to your data to make sure any random actors could come and take it. No, they want to be vague on purpose.
Yeah.
So they don't give you an idea of what they plan on doing with the data. Now, according to the story, they say, and I quote, "We want to push the boundaries of what the clinician can do in real time with data." But if you're partnering with Google, and even though your data will be anonymized, it will be connected to your smart devices. And Google's main business is to sell ads. So I can imagine you going into a doctor's visit, they collect data, whether it be blood temperature, whether it be whatever they collect, whatever you went in there for. And then soon
you'll start seeing ads.
You start seeing ads about, hey, this new blood pressure meter, or check out this new ad for this new prescription that just happens to coincide
with your doctor visit.
With what you was just prescribed.
Yeah, and they made mention to note, we're reading an article from The Verge that this healthcare company HCA made $3.75 billion in profits during 2020 despite all of the COVID stuff. So yeah.
And keep reading. National nurses said that in February, the company prioritized income over patient and staff safety. Nurses reported staff shortages and cutbacks on personal protective equipment. So
but they made almost $4 billion in profits.
Do the math. And Google said, hey, we will pay you millions and millions of dollars for this data that you have. And they said, take it, do what you need to do, and I guarantee you Google's going to figure out how to way to sell us ads against that. And again, that's just me being skeptic, being a cynic, but come on now, we know what
I think you're pretty much right on par, especially with what we know about how they use their data in some of the previous lawsuits and some of the previous data breaches. But it gets real shaky when you start talking about healthcare data.
And now it'll be anonymized.
Yeah.
But they'll be able to know what prescriptions people are taking. They'll know what things.
The outcomes of it. If you're overweight, you might start seeing weight loss ads or, nutrition programs,
They can take that anonymized data and figure out trends, and they'll use those trends to sell to advertisers and say, hey, the trend is people are fat, so you might want to buy some ads talking
buy
about
up
weight
some more
loss.
ads.
Right, buy up some more ads about weight loss training, and I guarantee you, all these different people, we've got all this data. I'm pretty sure you'll get your money back.
Yep, because they say healthcare algorithms. They don't specify what type. That's a very, very broad term. Algorithms is an extremely broad term. Healthcare is an extremely broad term. So if you are with an HCA hospital, that's just something to keep in mind, as this deal, as it's called in this article, starts and goes to market. And I'm pretty sure they've already started. So, yeah.
Microsoft and Amazon also have deals with hospitals to analyze their patient information. So this ain't the first, this won't be the last.
Nope. And a lot of the big tech companies are doing it. So it's probably going to touch us all at some point. All right. Next up is Microsoft, but not Big Willie style information. Apparently, we are getting a new iteration of Windows. I think MS Build started this week, which is Microsoft's conference, similar to WWDC. And I think Google I/O was just last week as well. So the CEO of Microsoft said he's been using it for some months. He's very pleased with what he's seeing and he's excited for it to come to market. He didn't give too much details around what the new operating system will look like. And it doesn't appear that they will be really discussing it during MS Build this week. Just know that it is forthcoming and they are excited about it. So if you just got used to using Windows 10, you're about to probably have to forget that and start with whatever this latest iteration of Windows is. In addition to a new operating system, they have been working diligently on their App Store, likely trying to compete with Apple's App Store as well as Google's Play Store. They're going to make, quote, significant UI changes in the operating system. So it should be interesting to see what fleshes out. I have to use a PC for work. So it will be interesting to see what new changes they have in store, because they did just announce that Internet Explorer is being buried. They are trying to focus and get everyone steadily using Edge. So appears big things are coming to PCs.
Well, so Microsoft has an issue of being so depending. A lot of businesses, pretty much the majority of the world, depends on Microsoft, depends on PCs to run their businesses. We can all talk about how cool Apple is, how, Android, Google, whatever, but let's be real, the world runs on
Windows,
PCs,
yep.
right? So they can't move and change and adjust and try new things as nimbly and as swiftly as an Apple, because they don't have a lot of people, nearly the amount of people, same amount of people using Apple devices as there are PCs. So Apple can change something and be like, hey, y'all users, do this now, versus Microsoft they can't, because entire industries could crush if Microsoft said, hey, do this now, right? One of the things I can think of, one of the main things, is how you download and install applications on a PC, right? The Microsoft Store has been out for a long time.
And it's not great.
I can't think of one time where I've actually went into the Microsoft Store and be like, ooh, let's see what new application or service that I can download. I'll go to the website of the thing that I want. I'll click download. It downloads to my computer. I go to the downloads folder. I open it. It loads, installs. I go about my business.
Yep.
Completely ignoring the Windows Store.
Yep.
So I think Microsoft is finally saying, okay, We need to start to figure out how to get some of these older users to adopt this new way of just installing stuff for it, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably going to do a better job or introduce this new way of, develop working. They mentioned in the story working with developers, working, so on and so forth, to try to get them to start to utilize the Microsoft Store more versus just giving the application software installs directly to users. So they got to figure out how to do that because they want to be like an Apple, like you mentioned. They want to be like a Google, to where they have Microsoft is the middleman, in order to get the user experience that they want to the actual users. So that's my assumption, that they're going to figure out a better way to utilize a Microsoft Store to get most of your applications from there versus just download them off the internet.
Right. And it mentioned in the article that they've already started with some new system icons, file explorer improvements, and they're getting rid of the Windows 95 era icons. So it looks like it's going to be a full facelift across the board, for not only the OS, but the way you interact with the, apps as well. So again, they don't mention a date. The only thing that Nadella said was, quote, very soon. So I'm assuming they're probably going to have a completely separate announcement regarding the new Windows. So, and it's called, what is this? Microsoft confirmed last week that Windows 10X, 1010.
Well, I think they're getting rid of that. Hold on. Satya Nadella's specific mention of next generation Windows is interesting. 2, Microsoft typically refers to everything as Windows 10, and this language could suggest the company is preparing for a more significant shift. Microsoft confirmed that last week that Windows 10X, or 1010, whatever you want to call it, its OS originally built for dual screen devices will no longer ship.
So they're getting rid of that too. Interesting.
Yeah, so they keep on trying some new things. Like I said, most of the world still run on PCs, but it's not sexy. So they're trying to figure out how to sexy it up.
Yeah, how to make it a little bit more enticing for the young ones. They're trying to keep up with the sexiness of, a Google or an Apple. All right. Finally, in second string, this seems fairly absurd to me, but I guess whatever. Instagram and Facebook are allowing its users to hide their likes. So I think when they tried this last time, people were freaking out because, again, we know that there are so many influencers, particularly on Instagram, probably more Instagram than Facebook. And people need those likes so that they can...
That validation
and influence and make money and all that good stuff. So they're giving users the option to hide the like count. To me, I see where they're going. They didn't want to completely get rid of it because people were freaking out, but then they also want to try and have some semblance of people not so focused on likes. But if you are an influencer, you are not going to hide your like count. And if you're a regular person, what's the benefit of you having your like count hitting? I don't know.
They have to do something because, again, likes and comments and all of this social proof is really getting to people, right? People are really being affected by their whole moods shift
if they don't have enough likes on their photo,
right? Based
or their
on
post.
The attention that their posts are getting. You can see it in Twitter. People will just say things just to get attention from people, whether it be regular people, whether it be celebrities, or whatever the case may be. So
for most of the people they don't even know.
Right. So you take that to Instagram, and since Instagram is very visual, those likes, mean something. So much so that it's starting to be a negative. So, they had to do something to say, look, we are not about to be the detriment of society.
And their mental
So,
health. We're going to make
right.
sure that we can at least say we did our part to
Hmm.
help mental health, particularly for, the younger kids who are on these apps that one aren't even supposed to be on there.
Hmm.
But, I mean, it's not just, teenagers. It's full grown adults who their whole life is wrapped up in how many users who've liked their post, or how many times
Hmm.
their video has been seen, or how many comments they have. But I get it. Now that you say that, this kind of gives them some absolution to say, we did our part to help people's mental health by giving them the option to hide their likes. So you still get the likes, even if you hide it, your likes are still counted and all that good stuff. So you can still use that information and that data to book your next deal or whatever it is. But at the
And
same
even,
time,
I mean, it could just be liability, right? Right. It couldn't even be something as, oh, we care about people's mental health and that. It could just be like, we just don't want to be liable for society to go down this path, right? And even, I mean, I took a quick look at my Instagram to see if I could hide likes. I didn't see a setting there yet, so I'm
I think it's
assuming.
probably being rolled out
Right.
incrementally like everything else.
But my guess is, like you mentioned, because influencers, people are actually making a living, they're making money off of Instagram. And my guess is, even with the option to initially hide likes, I'm pretty sure clicking on a more info or actually clicking on the image will reveal all of the surface level analytics, i.e., likes or options, thumbs up or comment or whatever the case may be. It'll quickly reveal those things. It just won't be the first thing you focus on when you go to a picture would be, well, how many likes it gets. Because I can see how, even me being a person just looking at Instagram, and I see an image that's not mine. I'm not trying to make any money off of it. I'm not tagged in it. I'm not, it wasn't directed at me. But me looking through images and I see this image has got a million likes, I'm gonna stop
And
and
see
I'm
what's
gonna be
going
like, well,
on.
what is this about? And then I'll maybe click on and what are people commenting, or what is the context of this image, or who's the, whatever the case may be. So that does kind of adversely or positively, negatively, whatever the case may be, it affects me in general versus the likes being on surface level hid. I will then naturally be drawn to what I'm interested to versus what everybody else is interested to. So I can see little changes like that could maybe start to shift things. Hopefully, it's not too late. Um,
Putting the genie back in
it's
the bottle is, I don't know. It's gonna be tough. Gonna be
right.
tough. But they are doing something, so we'll see. Someone has to be, some PhD candidate, somebody has to be studying this so that, 10, 15 years from now, they can collect all this data and come up with a synopsis on how has social media affected mental health, how it's affected, you know, um,
How we
how
interact.
we interact, and
Hmm.
how it has affected, basic living, because people are making tons of money off of this.
Hmm.
So you know, only time will tell, because again, this is something that we've never had before. Back in the day, we had message boards and those type of things, but nothing on the level of the amount of social media apps that are out now. So only time will tell. And I hope that, you know, I would think if they're doing this whole Instagram for kids, they would have some kind of parental controls where parents can turn likes off or comments off, that type of thing, just so that, it'll be a little bit of protection for their kids, but who knows. All right, that is it for second string. Let's head on over to For the Culture. I originally didn't want to have this discussion, but I thought after I did some research, coming at it from this angle, I think it may be, a little bit more helpful and less triggering. But yesterday, meaning Tuesday, was the 1 year anniversary in the murder of George Floyd. We know just last month that Derek Chauvin was convicted of his murder, and we are currently awaiting sentencing. I think it's supposed to be like a 6 to 8 week amount of time to get to the sentencing phase. But instead of focusing on his death, how he died, I wanted to take a look at it from a different perspective. During that summer of George Floyd's death, we had Ahmaud Arbery murdered. We had Breonna Taylor murdered. It was a huge summer of protests. The Black Squares were out there. Everybody was putting Black Power fists and Black Lives Matter in their bios. All of these companies were just throwing money at, diversity and helping and trying to do something along the lines of racial equality, improving, the overall systematic racism that we have in this country. And a lot of promises were made by a lot of companies, whether it was we're going to hire more Black and brown people. We're going to have these racial justice funds. We are going to change the way we do business that's more in line with where we are as a society to be inclusive. So there are a couple of questions that I have that I wanted to get your take on. The first one is, do you think that companies are following through on all of their promises that they made? And two, has anything improved since last summer?
Have companies made changes based on the promises? Yes. Again, back to my thing about Microsoft, for example, they're a big company. They can't just turn on a dime. So you could make the case that all of the pledges, all of the promises, all of the steps, all of the insight that these companies either made or gleaned from, George Floyd and then all the protests over summertime, you could make the case that a year later is maybe too soon to see some of the effects of some of these pledges and some of these promises. And this $4.56 billion that was originally pledged, they haven't spent it yet, so we haven't seen the fruits of it yet. We've done some stories about Apple, and they are opening up these buildings that's going to partner with HBCUs to hire more, train more tech savvy people, whether it be engineering, whether it be STEM, whether it be whatever the case may be. So you could make the case that, well, I'm pretty sure these companies, their response to a story like this would be that, wait, we haven't spent the money yet. It's only been a year, but, the argument to that is, it takes these same companies less than a year from research and development, from conceptualization to research and development to actually processes to production to shipment of all these little cool gadgets that we use and all this new technology. Amazon, for example, they've got this huge monster of a logistics thing, operations that they've got down packed to where pretty much anybody in America can order something and within 1 to 3 days, I can have that package at my front door. So while you can make the argument that, hey, we've got to do all this work and we've got to figure out the best way to implement, and we've got to figure out where this stuff should go and who will be benefited from it the most. Yeah, try again, because my old saying, if you want to get it done, you will figure out a way to get it done. If you don't want to get it done, you'll find every excuse in the book as to why you can't get it done. And I think that can apply to this particular, subject, as what companies, have they made good on their promises to do all this change and give all this money in the wake of George Floyd and the protests over the summertime, right? The second question was, has anything changed? It would be tough to find concrete ways or concrete things outside of some. I give, some of these states credit that there have been some changes as to policing. For example, I think one of the big pushes in the wake of George Floyd is police reform, right? George Floyd's family was, I think we were going to get into this eventually, but their family was brought to the White House. They had a sit down, sincere, air quotes, because I wasn't there, a sincere conversation with, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And according to George Floyd family, they get the impression that he meant all the words as a result of this conversation. Again, that's a lot of talk, but Biden has, or this administration, as far as their deadline or timeline rather, as to when they were going to, push forward any meaningful,
Legislation.
legislation towards police reform on a national level. That deadline has passed, passed from his deadline. So outside of the company taking a somewhat hard look at itself, maybe not even a hard look, a somewhat hard look, outside of some states making some changes to some police reform, some of the main things that we need, national police reform, a qualified immunity stripped away. I think that's the one thing we need out of there.
Yeah.
These police officers personally need to be held accountable and responsible. Who knows? Maybe that will dictate how they treat people on the front end when they are directly responsible for the end results on the back end.
Yeah, because as taxpayers, we are paying these payouts. Right. It's not coming from.
And they can just go to another police force if something happens.
Especially if they resign and aren't fired. I mean, even if they are fired, still.
Outside of America somewhat kind of taking a look at itself and having to come to terms somewhat of what America is, I don't think too much has changed. Now, there's been some movements toward change, but not actual change a year later.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take the floor any little bit longer, but I follow a group on Instagram called the Black Dollar Index, and they kind of were, shout out to Kevon Noel and some of those guys from doing that. And basically what they do is they dig into the data and the analytics and all of the, publicly available information from big companies and corporations, and find out how they are using the black dollar, how they're using black data, how they're using information based on African Americans, because again, we are a multiple trillion spending group, right? So one of the things they put on Instagram kind of fits into this story is they put a post and said, we've spent the last year digging through reports and corporate websites to curate enough information for consumers to better understand how transparent and committed these companies are to racial equity in Black America. So their image on Instagram says 5 learnings 1 year later. So this is almost ties into a year after George Floyd, what kind of fits into our story, right? One of the things that they say is Chief Diversity Officer. This title that all of a sudden sprouted up is an inflated title. Many companies made hires in this space and relatively new C-suite role. That you talk about your executives, vice president, senior vice president. New C-suite role is becoming more common, yet many of these offices or these positions do not sit within the corporate leadership and do not have the same level of authority and influence as their other C-suite counterparts. This reads as being more empty symbolism and less accountability. That's one. Another one, supplier diversity is a large yet underreported area for economic impact. We're talking about all of the smaller companies that may feed into a larger company. I may make precious metals or something, and then Apple uses me as a supplier. I give them the metal, and then they make the MacBook, for example, right? That's supplier diversity, right? Unfortunately, not all companies have supplier diversity programs commitments, and those who do, the information is shared at very blanketed. Dollar amounts are not provided. This means that a company could be touting their supplier diversity efforts, but allocating most of their dollars to women owned businesses or veteran owned businesses and leaving black owned businesses out. So basically, they say, yeah, we provide minorities with contracts, but they could be,
There are lots of
veteran.
kinds of minorities outside of race.
Exactly. Veterans are minorities. Women are minorities. But if we're talking about George
Disabled
Floyd,
people are minorities.
right. But if we're talking about George Floyd,
And
we're
black people
talking about African
specific.
Americans, we're talking about specifically black folks, there you can muddy the waters there, right?
Yeah.
Another one is many of the dollar commitments are conflated. So this goes to that 4.56 billion dollars and all these other pledges made by these companies. While the wealth gap widens and black people are being murdered by the police at a higher rate than other racial groups, these dollar commitments are going to blanketed, underserved, or biopic. What is it? Black, indigenous people
People
of
of color.
color.
Yep.
It makes very unclear how much investment is being made specifically in Black America. Corporations need to be more clear and more intentional with their commitments. Last one, many of the dollar commitments are spread across years. So when we talk about what has actually been done last year, it makes it more difficult to measure. For example, Goldman Sachs $10 billion capital investment commitment is spread over 10 years. This is a commitment that has not yet been fully executed on, but we as consumers should be frequently updated on allocations per year. So, kind of like that thing. It's like they make commitments. It's not specific. It's very generic, and it's very dense.
Right.
Right.
And that 5.6 billion number that Terrance is referencing, it's from an article that we're on Fast Company by Barry Williams. And it basically says that 159 companies have pledged a cash value of around that 4.56 billion. And what I took from her article that ties in with what you were just reading is the fact that all of this, the distribution of funds, grants, all of it is managed by these companies. So there's no type of external accountability
And oversight.
of what's going on, with this money. And so it leaves a gap of, like you said, these companies can say we've given to, minority groups, but that could be a different group of people. Black people could be included in those. There are black women, there are black veterans, but what about black people who fall outside of those, say, two things? So it's not specifically just for black people.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, I think this country has a tough time either admitting or committing to projects, legislature, any sort of commitment to black people specifically. And the reason why that is so important is because we, as black folks, had a major role or major part in this country being built. And I think for this country, to admit, of course we got black history, we got this thing, but then, it's like okay, we'll give you this, now shut up, right?
Right.
I think this country rather has a tough time coming to terms
as it relates to black people specifically.
As it relates to black people specifically, because it will peel back that band-aid of a scar that has not healed. And the scar will never heal until you actually address it.
Give it
Putting
some
this
air.
band-aid on top of it, just dancing around it, or like you said in the story, a blanketed, approach to where it includes everybody, instead of saying specifically this as it relates to black folks in America. I don't know if the country will ever, and I hate to be, Debbie Downer, but that's going to be a tough one, a tough pill for America to swallow, to finally say, look, we have done wrong. We have wronged for the longest, and we're sorry. This is the changes we're going to make. When you look at it, not just with George Floyd, you talk about the 1619 Project, right?
What they're doing to her and what they're doing to the project itself.
Right. They're blocking her tenure. So I can't recall what specific school she's trying to get tenure at, but
University of North Carolina, where she got her master's. And she has an undergraduate from Notre Dame, but their reasoning was she doesn't have a traditional academic background.
Right, and we know what time it is.
We already know.
Of the 1619 Project, for those who don't know, it really kind of examines the origin of blacks in America, how they got here specifically from that date on forward, right? To really
to now.
Generalize it, right? And even, so when something as impactful like that comes out, that is the origin, that is the core of America. And I don't think America wants to accept our place in its core, so much so that when the 1619 Project came out, the previous administration, they came out with their own, 1777
Sixth commission, bogus,
to kind of say, well, look, don't look at this.
Some of the slaves were happy. Some of the slave owners weren't bad.
Let's look at all the positives, and then you look at people like Rick Santorum, who, made that statement. He was finally, for those who don't know, I think he was a Republican from Florida, I think. And he was a regular on CNN, and he would be like the Republican voice of CNN. They're supposed to be moderate, things of that nature. He spoke at some event, and he was like, America was born from nothing, and we got the popular term the kids use today, got it out the mud.
Sir, really, sir,
America, we built America from nothing.
We picked ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Right. Native Americans, they were here, but they don't count. So statements like that, I think America wants to be known as this country that had all of these great ideas and had this way it wanted to do things and bucked the traditional system
and sweep everything else under the rug.
Right. And like you said, built itself up by its bootstraps and turned into, within this short period of time, the greatest country in the world. Right. But they don't want to recognize and don't want to accept the things that it truly did to get here,
But they do it for certain groups. They've done it for Jewish people. The Holocaust, that's sacred. We don't, it's one of those things where we are as a country, very reverent to their struggle, very reverent to the way that the Jewish people were, murdered, annihilated just for their religion. We have, I don't want to get it wrong, so I'll just say Asian as a blanket statement. There was a quote unquote, a reparations for those folks as well. So it's not like this country can't do anything about it or haven't been able to put action around it. But when it comes to black folks, when it comes to indigenous folks, even though they gave quote unquote gave the indigenous people reservations and tax breaks and different things, this was those people's land,
right?
And they did the bare minimum and think that Native Americans should be happy with that, while they are they are in some of the most abject poverty, murder, rates, pop, all of those things, and
Their
then
lands are completely stripped of
all their natural resources. They don't want to give them any type of acknowledgement that this is their country, that
Right.
Western people came in and stole. And as far as black people, y'all got the right to vote now, so y'all should just be happy and shut up. We had a black president one time, so I mean,
And we'll push and are actively pushing against the true history of blacks in America to be told. You've got this critical race theory argument to where
that they're
people
even
are
wrong
fighting,
about.
right? People are fighting tooth and nail to literally hide the true history, the true
atrocities in
origin
this country.
stories, from conception on up until now. You've got stories about Greenwood District, which we call Black Wall Street. They are really trying to get these stories uncovered, and what I'm learning in them actually trying to go back and tell the stories the right way, specifically with Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was the fact that they really tried to
Literally erase any historical mentions of that atrocity. Not just say, let's move on, it happened, we're sorry, our bad, let's move on. They were like, no, we're going to actively try to hide and erase this story, because they know that they were wrong.
Stuff like that happened all the time, from Tulsa to Rosewood to Philadelphia to all of these places, to where there have been black folks who have tried to make change, who've tried to speak up for themselves. And it's like, you are not a true member. They want to treat us as, you're not a true member of this society
that you built,
that you helped us build.
Yeah.
And, again, all around the world to say, going back to the original point was, it's going to take more than, George Floyd. It's going to take more than, police reform. It's going to take this for things to change. It's going to take this country finally coming to terms, having a Jesus moment with itself, to admit and to recognize, and we're not at, to recognize, I'll finish my statement, to recognize the impact and the input and the influence that blacks had on this country to where it is today. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's reparations. I don't know if that's free college. Who knows? I don't think black people know, because we're still trying to, here fighting for civil rights and not to be killed. So,
bare minimum.
Right. As a whole, I don't think we've done a lot of effort to what is it?
Yeah.
But at the very least, recognize
and reconcile what you have done. It's proof everywhere of what you've done, and ignoring it, pretending that it doesn't happen, trying to rewrite the story does not change the fact of what we all know. And the image of George Floyd's daughter, Gianna, the door being held open by the Marine, that's, floating around. It's a beautiful image. But let's be clear. This child should not have to be walking into the White House trying to help them get a bill passed, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. She shouldn't, this is a baby. She shouldn't be used in this way to try and garner the support and sympathy from folks who honestly, they ain't gonna have it. Never have, never will. She shouldn't have to be, put out there saying, my dad changed the world. That should not have to be put on George Floyd, and that should not have to be put on his daughter, and that should not have to be put on any of his family. What it boils down to is that recognize what you're doing is wrong and prosecute the people who are doing it and put safety measures in place so that it doesn't happen again. It's literally that simple. But, anytime you have anything about policing act in any type of context, people just lose their freaking minds.
It's a defense mechanism. It's a cover. It's a distraction. It's a diversion. I mean, again, it goes back to, the real problem isn't George Floyd. The real problem isn't policing. The real problem is this country is having a tough time reconciling its racial issues.
Yeah.
And until it does it, we'll keep having these things. This time next year, we'll be talking about somebody else.
It'll be a different hashtag.
Right. Somebody else will be going to trial. Police officer will be going to trial. We'll be on pins and needles as to whether or not they'll get convicted or not.
Yeah.
It'll keep going.
Vicious cycle.
Right. And one thing we can't do is stop, because I think that's what, people want to say. You're bringing up race.
Stop. Why does race have to be in everything? Stop talking about it. Start bringing up. But y'all still can't stop talking about being beat by the North. You still having whole rallies and shows and weekends to commemorate losing.
Right.
But you want us to let go of racism when there are tangible, disparities for Black people because of what happened, 400 years ago.
Right. They want to say, stop. You bringing up racism is the problem. No,
why you bringing up old stuff?
Racism is the problem, not us bringing it up.
Right.
Fix racism and we won't have nothing to talk about.
Right. Because all we literally are asking for is to not be murdered and to be able to live in harmony and in the safety of knowing that, we're going to be okay. We're asking for the bare minimum when we have every right to want to burn the place down and, expect more. But we'll settle for not being killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Don't have anything for the hookup this week? I know I don't.
No. Plug up your computers and your phones and your tablets and let them update.
Yep. Let them update overnight. Perfect. Yep.
It ain't gonna kill the battery if you let it charge. I don't know where that myth came from, to where if you keep it plugged up too long, it's gonna drain the battery.
No, that's not how it works.
And even if it does, you won't notice the difference.
Right. Exactly. All right, that is our show for this week. Definitely download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Be sure to engage with us on social media. We're at SnobOScast everywhere, including Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Definitely be sure to go to our YouTube channel at SnobOScast. Like and subscribe to our channel, where you can also watch previous episodes. Also, feel free to leave us comments and suggestions on our website, snobwestcast.com, or shoot us over an email, snobwestcast@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, you can do that in two ways: by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/snobwestcast. For $5 a month, you will get access to our pre-show content, access to our live show taping, and access to our chat community. If you want, the second way you can support the show is by giving us a one-time or multiple-time love offering over at PayPal. We are at paypal.me/snobOS. And I think that's it for this week.
That is it.
We will see you again. Bye.